The reason he crashed was that Griffin was choking his chicken while watching a dope video on a DVD player in his car. Griffin got out and pleaded to not police for Tarpley. But following this season, Tarpley looked for help for something that looked to become an issue. After a very good race. These NBA players had their lives all but figured out before throwing their whole life's work away. Starting with Ty Lawson, whose stupidity got him kicked out of a whole nation. Ty Lawson was at one point on the verge of doing the impossible. Standing at just 5'10", Ty Lawson was...
So am I the only one who saw that screenshot of him hitting a shorty from the back on Worldstar Hip Hop? I'm the only nigga who would click on that. So y'all niggas wouldn't click on that. Alright. Oh.
Was once ranked within the top 10 point guards in the NBA as a borderline all-star, who was finishing just outside of top 10 in MVP voting. Lawson's rise to the top of the NBA was extraordinarily exciting. I mean, as an undersized guard scoring nearly 17 a game at UNC on 53% and 47% shooting splits, this guy was playing fast, this guy was playing efficiently, and he didn't leave you a moment to blink. Lawson would earn the 18th selection of the 2009 NBA draft while playing under one of the best guards of the era on the back half of his career in Chauncey Billups. Really, this was one of the better come-up stories you could have in the NBA. Learning under Chauncey greatly developed his game, while Carmelo Anthony was taking up the scoring load for the first couple of years in his career, where after a pair of seasons to learn and develop, Denver would move on from their core to pass the keys to the offense to Lawson, leaving him with supporting pieces like Nene, Gallinari, and Aaron Aflalo. And at an efficient 16 and 6.5, the transition was rather seamless. The Nuggets were able to jump from a 50 and 32 finish in the final year of the Carmelo Anthony era to a not much worse 38 and 28 with Lawson leading all scorers. Climbing to near 17 and 7, then near 18 and 9, Ty Lawson was officially energizing this team.
What the fuck was going on in the West? Was just Lakers just winning every goddamn thing? God damn.
That was expected to be forced into rebuild mode. Lawson certainly brought the fun back to Denver basketball. But this fun certainly wouldn't last for long.
Yep.
Lawson for years had been known as a heavy drinker starting back to his days at UNC. After being arrested for an underage DUI, Lawson had began having trouble with the law since his earliest days. But blowing just a .03, which is under half of the legal limit, the issues weren't taken seriously until they began to rapidly snowball. 2012, Ty Lawson would again see himself charged with a petty crime when cited with careless driving. And after avoiding prosecution in 2013, the issues would be significantly ramped up. This time being charged for a pair of crimes involving a domestic violence dispute and property damage.
Do not give him no car.
And Lawson would be arrested again for driving under the influence.
Oh my God!
Where after his arrest, he admitted to a prior Dewey arrest in which he was released on a $1,500 bond in Missouri, under the condition that he quit drinking altogether. Now having gone back on his pinky promise, this dude could not quit booze cruising, getting caught drinking and driving for the 4th time just 6 months after
that nigga love that shit, boy. That nigga love that shit. Damn, Ty. I just smoking and ride around too, but damn, drinking and driving, that's dangerous. That's crazy. You find some demons. Man, that's crazy. Nigga, everything wobbly when you drunk. Nigga. Everything, the whole world wobbly now. Cause you wobbly now. You just loose in the, you know what I'm saying? How the fuck do you even handle an automotive vehicle? And you were in a big ass city. You can do some shit like you gotta be in a country to do some shit like that.
Lawson would be courts to attend mandatory rehab, which he did attend. But seeing the rapid decline of their star player, the Nuggets chose to dump their star while his play was still at a high. The Houston Rockets the unlucky schmucks to pick up Lawson's talents, where his play would see a colossal fall off from his former highs.
Oh no!
Going from 15 to 5 points per game.
That nigga was sober. That's what it was. Motherfucker sober. That nigga need to be drunk. This nigga a drunken master. Whole time, this nigga is a drunken master. Yep. He's the drunken master, and he needs to perform when he's under the influence. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Now, look, fucking career fella. Guess what? Guess what? It's not even his fault. It's the NBA's fault because they didn't let him do his thing. Okay, no, it is his fault. It's his fault. Why the fuck did you have a driver? You cheap ass nigga. You supposed to have a driver with you. You gonna be so fucking drunk. Okay.
In a single season, before being traded around the league in his late 20s. Lawson would take his talents to China, where despite being a washed-up NBA player, he was still able to land a multi-million-dollar contract to play basketball for a living. Well,
you was
that
drunk
was
out
until
there.
Lawson would take to his IG story to post, "Chinese women got cakes on the low. Might switch up my stance soon." Followed with a post saying, "YOLO, I guess LOL."
Whoa! Damn, hey, hold on, god damn. Nigga. Hold on. Hey, he ain't lying. Hey. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
These posts would not be taken too well by the Chinese government and the citizens of China, as waves of hate ensued him, before he would be banned from the Chinese Basketball League altogether. Lawson would play out the final few years of his career playing overseas in Greece, Africa, and Venezuela, where the only real news that Lawson would make would be him throwing a glass at a woman in a restaurant. It's safe to say that even after watching his own career fall apart stemming from his own actions, Ty Lawson still can't hold himself back from his own self-destruction. There have been many heartbreaking downfalls in the NBA, but very few have been nearly as gruesome as Eddie Griffin. As a pretty troubled kid his entire life growing up without a father present, Griffin would routinely get into altercations, including one that costed him his senior year of high school.
Whoa.
What became usual for Eddie is, despite his behavior, his unreal talents tended to bail him out, as despite being kicked out of school as a senior, he still landed a full-ride scholarship to Seton Hall, where his talents would absolutely shine. Eddie put up an impressive 17 and 10 with 4 blocks a game in college, and was also one of the very rare stretch bigs roaming the land when that wasn't exactly a thing. Griffin was a big-time prospect with big-time talents. However, his talents weren't exactly the issue with him. Griffin would once again get into an altercation, this time involving a fight with a teammate after he clocked him in the face, requiring stitches. Griffin was talented, but was also a head case. And if you wanted a very well-rounded big, you were going to have to probably bring in a damn good therapist as well. On a much more serious note, as it was clear that Eddie wasn't 100% right in the head, these problems only greatly worsened as his older half-brother would pass away of a heart attack. This greatly affected Eddie, especially given the clear need of a father figure that he was lacking, and caused Eddie's problems to only snowball wildly. Griffin would be drafted 7th overall in the 2001 NBA draft by the New Jersey Nets, who flipped him to Houston immediately in a trade that greatly benefited the Nets, as there was really minimal good to come from Eddie's career whatsoever.
They got Vince Carter.
At just under 9 and 6
Vince
on
Carter that year.
36% from the field, Griffin was not exactly the stud people expected him to be after his excellent play in high school and college. But as you dig deeper into his issues, it's pretty clear to see why. Griffin would abuse drugs and alcohol badly throughout his career. This would affect his play as his on-court production was poor. This would affect his team as he would miss practice and start altercations with teammates, as he proved to be prone to in the past. And this would affect his life as he spiraled out of control. Griffin would become pretty prone to trouble, as he would clock 4 arrests throughout his short NBA career. After a drug possession charge in 2003, Griffin would be charged in a much more serious crime involving him striking a woman 3 times.
Hold on. Was charged with fighting a woman who says he beat her and fired a gun in her direction. The victim calls Griffin. Accused Griffin of hitting her 3 times in the face and shooting her. Southwest Houston.
Times in his home. After 2 disappointing seasons in Houston, Griffin's problems would only become worse, as he would miss the entirety of the following season seeking help for his drinking problem. Minnesota would sign him for cheap in an attempt to land a floor spacer next to Kevin Garnett for pennies on the dollar, but unfortunately, this wouldn't even be close to a diamond in the rough. Griffin's problem with booze was very clear as he entered the league, and upon landing in Minnesota, it didn't appear his problem got any better in rehab. Portland coach Dwayne Casey stated it was a very clear problem that everyone knew about and everyone did their best to help with. Coach McHale said that Griffin was open about how he was losing his battle with alcohol, even taking Antabuse, a drug that makes alcoholics violently ill when they drink. McHale advised Eddie to seek help from former NBA player and coach John Lucas, who runs a program that specializes in helping former players with drug and alcohol addiction. Lucas enrolled Griffin in 2005, and Griffin successfully completed a 6-month program, prompting the Wolves to sign him to a contract extension. Griffin would then see continual drop-offs in production down to a new career low of 4 points a game. But way worse than that, Griffin would be involved in a car accident in which he rammed into a parked car. Griffin was clearly very drunk, and to make matters worse, witnesses stated that the reason he crashed was that Griffin was choking his chicken while watching a dope video on a DVD player in his car. Griffin got out and pleaded to not call the police, then proceeded to go and buy more alcohol in the convenience store at. Griffin would be involved in a car accident in which he rammed into a parked car. Griffin was clearly very drunk, and to make matters worse, witnesses stated that the reason he crashed was that Griffin was choking his chicken while watching an adult video on a DVD player in his car. Griffin got out and pleaded to not call the police, then proceeded to go and buy more alcohol in the convenience store that he crashed his car in front of. The Timberwolves were looking to dump Griffin as quickly as possible, I'd assume, after this disaster of a pickup, as Griffin's minutes in production would quickly fall before he would be released by the Timberwolves in 2007, never to play in the NBA again. After failing miserably in the NBA and embarrassing himself to the world, Griffin's problems would sadly only get worse, and just a few months later, the world would wake up to some shocking news. On August 17, 2007, a tragic event unfolded when Griffin lost his life in a car accident around 1:30 a.m. According to Houston police reports, he ignored a railroad warning and drove through a barrier, colliding with a moving train. The impact caused a fire that engulfed his SUV. Griffin's body was severely burned, making immediate identification impossible. It was only through dental records that he was identified later on. An autopsy revealed that he had more than 3 times the legal alcohol limit in his system with a BAC level of 0.26. The Harris County Medical Examiner's Office concluded that he died from multiple blunt force injuries. With a 3-year-old daughter at home at just 25 years old, Griffin had went from an NBA lottery pick to dead in just a few years, due to his own poor decisions of trying to heal his existing issues with a vice that would inevitably destroy him. Roy Tarpley seems to be one of the more forgotten what-ifs in NBA history.
What? No, like, what? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, how close was this motherfucking... I don't know. I don't really beat... It was in Minnesota. It was in Minnesota? Never been to Minnesota. What the fuck was you... Like, what? How is that possible? So, bro, like, that nigga... Like, that's so stupid of you. Like, I'm sorry. I know he's passed away. R.I.P. But what? My nigga. So you have to, like, so he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna beat this motherfucker. There's no way. Like, you that drunk that you can beat that shit? Ain't gonna lie. But you also got a ram. I don't know. All railroads are supposed to have a goddamn whatchamacallit, a stopper in a way. Where the fuck was you? So once you hit the stopper, you lose speed. So you done lost about 5% of speed from hitting the stopper. So your shit probably flipped. You probably flipped and shit, and that shit blew up. That's crazy, bro.
But due to his own actions, he squandered what was one of the more promising young NBA careers while dragging an entire NBA franchise down in the process. You may not be familiar with the game of Roy Tarpley.
We ain't making fun of nobody.
Maybe you just
God
don't remember.
damn.
So let me give you a reminder what made this kid so special. In an era dominated by those more physically dominant than the next, Tarpley was standout to say the least. With rebounding numbers that were comparable to Dennis Rodman, this guy was legitimately one of the best glass cleaners that the game has ever seen in a short NBA run. And with a little mid-range jumper, a decent handle, and good vision for a big guy in transition, this guy looked to be a prototype for the future of the big man position. Until he lost it all. Roy had a pretty solid college career that was able to garner him quite a bit of buzz, putting up highs of 19 points, 10.4 rebounds, and just under 3 blocks a game throughout his college career. Tarpley had some hype surrounding him, although he did receive a boost from being a part of the 1986 draft class, which probably was the worst in history. Brad Daugherty, who had his own injury issues, Chris Washburn, who did tons of blow and sucked ass on the floor and got banned from the NBA in the meantime, and Len Bias, who literally died shortly after.
I gotta blow my nose, man. Hey, who the fuck is who?
Being picked. This has to be the worst top 3 ever, and maybe the worst draft.
He was doing that blow.
Regardless of the disaster around him, Tarpley was not one of these disappointments. At least, not right away. Drafted onto a Mavericks team led by guys like Mark Aguirre, Rolando Blackman, Sam Perkins, and Derek Harper, these guys weren't going to totally wow you with their game, but they could certainly outgrit and grind you in a 7-game series. This was one of the more underrated rosters of the era, and Tarpley was able to fit into a role right off the bat for these guys. On a very competitive roster, Tarpley mainly played the role of a 6th man, but what became clear very quickly is that he was damn good at it. Putting up 7 and 7 his rookie year was pretty good production for just 18 minutes a game. I mean, double that out to per 36, and 14 points and 14 rebounds as a rookie is an all-around beast. The future was looking bright for Tarpley, but following this season, Tarpley looked for help for something that looked to become an issue. After a very good rookie season, Roy would open up to the Mavericks front office on his concern for his alcohol and drug use.
Hold on, are we still... Okay, just want to make sure.
Tarpley had routinely been drinking excessively and using cocaine despite his excellent play. Roy would need 6 weeks of rehab to start his second season. This was taken very seriously by the league, who made it clear that if he tests positive for the stuff,
coke off
his
white
ass
girl
was
booty
grass.
crack, boy.
Especially after Len Bias aired out the NBA's dirty laundry in his own draft class. But after he came back, you would have expected this guy to spend the last 6 weeks around trainers and teammates, not doctors and junkies. Tarpley would continue to grow, climbing up to 14 and 12 as the 6th man of the year in just his second season.
But he
Tarpley
saw that shit like, whoa, what the fuck?
Percentage-wise, ahead of guys like Dennis Rodman and Charles Barkley,
but y'all was playing.
And even slotted in at the top of the league in defensive rating. When scoring and playmaking was covered on the stats team, Tarpley could do everything else. But even when they needed him to fill that role as a scorer or a passer, he could do it as well. This guy was a beast. Despite milking the 6-man thing a little too hard, come playoff time, it looked like this guy was the new face of the team despite coming off the bench. At 17.5 and 11 against the Rockets, Tarpley looked like the best player on the floor by far, and he was only getting better. At 20.5 and 14, this guy ate up the Denver Nuggets the following series on their way to the Western Conference Finals. And matching up with the Showtime Lakers, these guys almost rewrote history. With one of the most underrated cores of all time, and Tarpley filling the role as a total stud of a glue guy, these guys were just a single game away from knocking off the Magic and Kareem Lakers as Tarpley averaged 16 and 13 on Kareem's head off the bench. Tarpley unfortunately would battle injuries in the following season, as Maverick star Mark Aguirre would also be traded at this time, making way for Tarpley to take over the keys to Dallas. After being on the low the most valuable player on this team for at least the back half of the year, Tarpley was finally awarded with a starting spot in the 1990 season, until unfortunately just 6 games into the year, Tarpley would be arrested for drunk driving and resisting arrest, leaving him suspended for half of the following season. This was a bad slip-up for Tarpley, who had seen minimal action on the floor due to bad luck and his own life choices. But in the eyes of the NBA, this just meant strike number 2. Tarpley would return briefly in 1991 before being arrested for drunk driving a second time, before the NBA would ban Tarpley from the NBA just like that. Strike number 3.
Okay.
Terribly really managed to play at an all-time high while using and abusing just for his lifestyle to catch up with him and destroy his livelihood just once he seemed to be catching his big break. Dallas would see low points of 10 and 11 win seasons in Tarpley's absence, as in their words, they were planning to build around this guy. And when the NBA slapped him with a ban, they just rug pulled their whole franchise. Tarpley would be offered a second chance in the NBA all the way in 1994 after spending 2 years injured and suspended and 3 years playing in Greece while he was banned from the NBA. Unfortunately, it appears that Tarpley would not curb the problems that ended his initial run, as after putting up a mediocre season as a shell of himself, Tarpley would be banned for life from the NBA for continuing to drink while in the NBA's recovery program. The problems would only get worse, of course, as after another DUI arrest shortly after his second banning, Roy would drink himself into an early grave, passing away at just 50 years old in 2015 due to liver failure. Delonte West has certainly made more media headlines than any 10-point per game scorer I've ever heard. By most measures in the NBA, I think this guy overachieved. As a 27th overall pick who was labeled too short at his position, putting up 12 points per game on up near 50, 40, 90 shooting splits is certainly one of the better role players in the NBA. Delonte would be moved to Seattle in the Celtics Ray Allen trade, then to Cleveland where he would make some noise as LeBron's best perimeter shooter at 40% from 3, then proceed to his mom, so it was pretty chill.
Yeah, we just jumped right there.
Yeah, that shit was crazy. Basically immediately after being traded, finding him constantly at odds with teammates.
His mom wild as
fuck
for that.
With the team psychiatrist, where Delonte would be diagnosed with
bipolar
disorder.
kept doing
West would see a decline.
You couldn't just hit it once.
Beginning in his later 20s, where
crazy.
After a few suspensions for erratic behavior and a weapons charge,
so that being said,
a routine traffic stop, Delonte would be out of the NBA in 2012 at 28 years old. This was a pretty mild exit. I mean, besides the LeBron memes, no one really gave a rat's ass about Delonte West or his game. And as he would silently play in the G League following a modest career that was probably cut a contract too short by his unpredictable behavior, it really wasn't until 1 year after Delonte retired from basketball that he started making real news. Delonte would be seen in 2016 asking people for money on the side of the street, just 4 years after making $16 million playing in the NBA. Things would only get worse as Delonte would be videoed in handcuffs, clearly heavily intoxicated, speaking gibberish to officers. Delonte was calling out for help, and unlike many in this situation, Delonte, given his position, would actually receive it. Mark Cuban would hunt down his former player and check him into rehab, where after months of work, it appeared that Delonte had made a shocking recovery. Now with a new job and a new life, it was hard to believe that this guy was just belligerent on the side of the street.
Fucked up, man.
Unfortunately, the hopes would quickly be lost as in 2022, Delonte would be back out on the street begging strangers for money, leading many to question if Delonte had relapsed. And as Delonte would be arrested for stealing a car shortly after, it seemed we got our answer.
Lord.
Delonte would be arrested in June 2024, where a mugshot would release showing him in his current condition.
God damn!
We couldn't even do justice to what this picture describes. After reaching the immaculate high to losing it all, to bouncing back just to end up in the same position, Delonte is a harsh reminder about how serious these issues can really be. Latrell Sprewell's basketball journey is one of the most dramatic in NBA history, as his immense talent was often overshadowed by personal controversies. Coming to the league with the Golden State Warriors in 1992, Sprewell quickly made a name for himself. His second season was a breakout year where he averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2.2 steals, earning an All-Star selection and finishing just outside top 10 in MVP voting. Over the first 5 years of his career, he became a 3-time All-Star, leading the Warriors and establishing himself as one of the most electrifying players in the league. However, his intensity on the court was matched by the volatile behavior off of
Biggest jerks in the league.
His defining and most infamous moment, of course, came on December 1st, 1997, when during practice, head coach PJ...
Did I hear something?
Carlissimo criticized Sprewell for not making sharp passes. This situation quickly escalated when Sprewell responded by telling Carlissimo to stay away. And when he continued to approach him, Sprewell grabbed him by the throat, choking him for 10 to 15 seconds before teammates intervened.
Damn.
Shockingly, after leaving the practice facility and cooling down, Sprewell returned about 20 minutes later and punched his coach in the face.
Damn!
The violent outburst resulted in a 68-game suspension, effectively ending his season and costing him nearly $6.5 million. This incident became one of the most notorious in sports history. In 1995, Sprewell fought his teammate Jerome Kersey during practice, and when Kersey did not retaliate, Sprewell left practice only to return wielding a 2x4 and threatening to come back with a gun. Early in his career during his rookie season, Sprewell also fought teammate Byron Houston, a much larger and tougher player who teammates compared to Mike Tyson in terms of build and demeanor. These incidents established Sprewell's reputation as a disruptive presence in the locker room. Despite the infamous choking incident, Sprewell was given a second chance after being waived by the Warriors following the suspension. Despite all the controversy, Sprewell did put together a pretty solid career with his stints with the New York Knicks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where he would become part of a potent trio alongside Kevin Garnett and Sam Cassell. The team made it to the Western Conference Finals in 2004, but this marked the last major highlight of his NBA career. After an average season while he still managed to score 12.8 points per game, the Timberwolves offered Sprewell a 3-year, $21 million contract to continue playing for them. Instead of accepting the offer, Sprewell infamously rejected it, stating, "I've got a family to feed," which sparked widespread criticism as the contract was more than sufficient by NBA standards for a player of his age and declining production. Expecting to land a more lucrative deal, Sprewell turned down all subsequent offers, anticipating a contending team would sign him mid-season. However, no such offers materialized, and Sprewell's NBA career ended abruptly. This decision became emblematic of his self-sabotaging behavior, as he allowed pride and a misunderstanding.
Damn, 21 million, nigga? Damn, nigga, all you gotta do is just play basketball. Okay, alright, shut up, Darren. Damn, all you gotta do is just play basketball. Damn. His yacht was auctioned off for $856,000. Hey, maybe he, you know what I'm saying? You could have flipped that shit. You could flip that shit. That's a lot of fucking money. You greedy bastards. Still.
Own value to cost him his remaining years in the league. Unfortunately, Sprewell's post-basketball life continued in the same downward spiral. Financial issues plagued him. Despite earning an estimated $100 million during his career, Sprewell lost his yacht for failing to make payments, and his home was foreclosed on after he defaulted on his mortgage. Legal troubles also followed him. In 2006, he was sued by the mother of 4 of his children for $200 million for failing to maintain child support payments, and was also arrested for assaulting a woman on his yacht, continuing the cycle of personal and financial missteps. Sprewell's career, while once promising, became a cautionary tale. His inability to control his temper, poor financial decisions, and stubborn refusal to accept his declining value in the NBA resulted in an unceremonious end to a career that could have been way more successful.
God damn. What the fuck? 200 fucking million. 200 fucking